Before you place another item into your shopping basket, there is something you deserve to know. Many of the everyday foods sold in UK supermarkets products that look familiar, friendly, and safe contain additives and chemicals that most European countries no longer allow. They sit on the shelves quietly mixed into sweet sauces, cake decorations, and even the packaging that touches your food. And while none of these products carry warning signs, several of the ingredients inside them were judged by European regulators as too risky for public consumption, especially for older adults. Here is the unsettling contradiction. The same evidence that led the European Union to restrict or ban certain additives led UK regulators to a completely different conclusion. Two agencies looked at the same research. One said the risk is too high. The other said no safety concerns identified. Both cannot be right. And this matters deeply for seniors and families. Chemical exposure accumulates with age. What seems harmless in a single serving may become harmful after years of repeated intake. Stay with this investigation. By the end of this video, you will know exactly which ingredients deserve your attention and which safer alternatives you should consider for your household. To understand why this investigation matters, especially for older adults, we need to look at how food safety decisions are actually made. For decades, the United Kingdom and the European Union followed the same standards for additives, packaging materials, and chemical exposure. But since Brexit, that alignment has shifted. The EU continues to apply what is known as the precautionary principle, a regulatory approach that says, if there is any reasonable concern about long-term harm, restrict it now. The UK system, however, often sets acceptable daily intake limits instead, meaning a substance can remain legal as long as exposure stays below a calculated threshold. This difference may sound technical, but its effects show up directly in your kitchen when the European Food Safety Authority reviews thousands of studies and concludes that a substance cannot be considered safe at any level. Products across Europe get reformulated quickly. When the UK Food Standards Agency reviews the same evidence, yet concludes no safety concerns, identified those same products stay on British shelves without warning labels. Marketing makes the situation even more confusing. Many packages use terms like natural, fresh, or traditional, even when the ingredients list tells a very different story. Older adults who often trust long-established brands and may not follow changes in regulations are particularly vulnerable to these subtle marketing cues. A familiar logo or a product you've bought for 20 years can easily create a false sense of security. There is also the issue of cumulative exposure. Seniors process chemicals differently because metabolism, liver function, and immune response naturally decrease with age. Even small amounts of certain additives, artificial dyes, or packaging chemicals can have amplified effects over time. Recent reviews by scientific agencies, including EFSA and international toxicology groups, show growing concerns about nanoparticles, endocrine-disrupting chemicals, and long-lasting forever chemicals that build up in the body. Yet many of these substances remain legal and unlabeled in the UK market. This is why the issue deserves your full attention. The problem is not one brand or one product. It is an entire system where safety standards are drifting apart, leaving consumers, especially older adults, to navigate the risks on their own. Titanium dioxide appears in many everyday foods, especially brightly colored sweets, icing cake decorations, and certain sauces. For years, it was marketed as a harmless whitening agent that made products look cleaner and more appealing. Most shoppers never questioned it, especially older adults who had been buying the same brands for decades. Yet this familiar ingredient sits at the center of one of the largest regulatory disagreements between the UK and Europe. After reviewing around 10,000 scientific studies, the European Food Safety Authority concluded in 2022 that titanium dioxide could no longer be considered safe as a food additive. France had already banned it 2 years earlier. The concern focused on nano-sized particles that can pass through the gut lining and accumulate in organs such as the liver and spleen. Some studies showed DNA, strand breaks, and chromosomal damage. Europe responded by removing the ingredient entirely from food. The UK, however, reviewed the same evidence and announced that no safety concerns have been identified. The ingredient remained legal with no warning labels. Packaging also does not specify whether nanoparticles are present, even though these are at the center of the safety debate. Because older adults have slower metabolic clearance and a higher risk of cumulative toxicity, this quiet reg. A similar gap appears with artificial food dyes, still found in some UK sweets drinks and sauces. These bright colors attract children, but families often do not realize that several of them. Sunset yellow, tartrazine ponceau, 4R, carmozine, allura, red, and quinoline yellow were the subject of a major 2007 study by Southampton University. In a double-blind trial involving 297 children, researchers found a significant increase in hyperactivity among those who consumed mixtures of these dyes. The findings were published in The Lancet, prompting the European Union to introduce mandatory warning labels stating that the colors may have an adverse effect on activity and attention in children. This simple sentence pushed many manufacturers to remove synthetic colors from their European products. In the UK, however, these dyes remain legal and appear in some items without obvious warnings. What complicates matters is that global brands often produce different formulations for different markets. A sweet sold in Europe may contain natural colors, while the same sweet sold in another country may rely on cheaper synthetic dyes. Because natural colorings can cost up to 100 times more, companies reformulate quietly without informing shoppers. For older adults with sensitivities, digestive issues, or inflammatory conditions, these additives may trigger symptoms that seem unrelated to food. BPA, or bisphenol A, is a different kind of concern entirely. It is not mixed into food, but migrates from the lining of metal cans and from certain reusable plastic bottles. You cannot taste it, smell it, or see it. Yet BPA has been studied for decades due to its hormone-disrupting effects. In 2015, EFSA considered 4 micrograms per kilogram of body weight per day to be safe. But after examining roughly 800 new studies published since then, the agency reduced its recommended limit in 2023 to 0.2 nanograms per kilogram, 20,000 times lower. Research suggested that even extremely small exposures might impair immune function. Europe responded with a sweeping regulatory update that effectively removed BPA from food contact materials by 2024. The UK continues to operate under the older 2015 threshold, meaning British shoppers may still be exposed to higher levels of BPA through canned soups, tinned tomatoes, long-life meals, and older reusable plastics. Because the chemical acts as an endocrine disruptor, older adults may face heightened risks related to hormone-sensitive cancers, thyroid disorders, reproductive changes, and metabolic disturbances. Yet most cans do not carry BPA labeling, leaving consumers unaware of what they are buying. PFAS chemicals present an even more hidden challenge. These substances used to create grease-resistant and water-resistant packaging are found in fast food wrappers, pizza boxes, microwave popcorn bags, and even the baking paper used in supermarket bakeries. PFAS do not break down naturally and accumulate in the human body over time, earning them the name forever chemicals. Large studies from public health agencies show that nearly all adults have detectable PFAS levels in their blood. Links have been established between PFAS exposure and kidney cancer, testicular cancer, thyroid disease, immune suppression, and developmental issues in children. Denmark banned PFAS in food packaging in 2020, and the EU followed with broad restrictions beginning in 2024. The UK is still evaluating possible changes with no confirmed timetable. For older adults who already experience reduced kidney and liver function, these chemicals pose a heightened long-term risk. Packaging rarely states that PFAS are present. Shoppers instead see terms like greaseproof or non-stick, unaware of the chemical implications. Another area of concern involves synthetic dyes used in imported candies and processed snacks. Many households enjoy international treats, especially American sweets that appear in UK supermarkets or online. What most people do not realize is that identical brands often use different colorings depending on regional regulations. European versions may contain natural extracts, while American versions use red 40, yellow 5, and yellow 6, 3 dyes that are significantly cheaper but more controversial. A scientific review published in Carcinogenesis in 2024 noted a correlation between increased consumption of synthetic dyes in previous decades and later rises in early-onset colorectal cancer. Although researchers did not claim a direct cause, they highlighted the need to study how these dyes break down in the digestive tract. This matters for older adults whose digestive tissues may already be more fragile. Because packaging usually looks identical. Many consumers never notice that the ingredients differ by country. Finally, preservatives such as BHA E320 and BHT E321 extend shelf life by preventing fats from turning rancid. These additives appear in cereals, packaged snacks, processed meats, and baked goods. Their use allows products to sit on supermarket shelves for months without spoiling, which is financially attractive for manufacturers. However, BHA is classified internationally as a possible carcinogen, and both chemicals have been studied for potential endocrine-disrupting effects. Some research suggests they may interfere with hormone balance or increase oxidative stress. These risks grow more significant for seniors who often have underlying health conditions and greater susceptibility to toxic accumulation. Nonetheless, packaging frequently describes these additives simply as antioxidants, a term that sounds healthy and reassuring. This wording can easily mislead shoppers into believing the substances serve a nutritional purpose when their only function is to increase product stability. Across all these examples, the common theme is a widening gap between public assumptions and regulatory reality. Many older adults buy the same brands they have trusted for years, unaware that some products have changed ingredients or that safety standards have diverged between the UK and Europe. Additives, colorings, packaging chemicals, and preservatives rarely appear in advertisements, yet they play a central role in long-term health. Understanding what these substances do, why regulators disagree, and how exposure accumulates is essential for anyone trying to protect themselves and their families. There is one issue in this investigation that stands above all the others, not because it appears in a single product, but because it appears in almost every aisle of the supermarket. It isn't a color, a preservative, or a flavoring. It is the packaging itself, the cans, wrappers, baking papers, and containers designed to keep food fresh. For millions of older adults across the UK, this is the quietest but most significant source of chemical exposure. The most alarming example is BPA, a chemical used in metal can linings and many reusable plastics. In 2023, after reviewing more than 800 new studies, the European Food Safety Authority concluded that BPA could harm the immune system at extremely low doses. They lowered the acceptable exposure limit by an astonishing factor of 20,000. This was not a small or symbolic adjustment, it was the scientific equivalent of sounding an alarm. Europe quickly moved to ban BPA from food contact materials. The UK, however, still operates under guidelines written nearly a decade earlier. Even more disturbing is the rise of PFAS, the forever chemicals used to create grease-resistant packaging. These substances accumulate in the bloodstream and do not break down for decades. They have been linked to cancers, thyroid disorders, and immune problems. Denmark banned them from food packaging in 2020. The EU followed in 2024. In the UK, they remain widely used while regulators continue to consult. The shocking truth is that consumers cannot see, smell, or taste any of these chemicals. You cannot avoid them by choosing a different flavor brand or price point. They are present in many everyday items from tinned tomatoes to bakery pastries, often without any required labeling. For older adults who accumulate chemical exposure over a lifetime, this silent risk may be the most consequential of all. The goal of this investigation is not to create fear, but to give you practical tools, especially for older adults and families who want clearer, safer choices. The first step is learning how to read labels with intention. When checking ingredients, watch for additive codes such as E171, E102, E122, E124, E129, E320, and E321. These numbers indicate colorings and preservatives that may pose risks when consumed regularly. If you see multiple synthetic dyes grouped together or long chemical names that do not resemble real food, it is a sign to consider an alternative product. With packaging, look for phrases such as BPA-free or PFAS-free, especially on reusable bottles, food containers, and baking papers. Not every manufacturer includes these disclaimers, but those that do often make safer choices overall. When purchasing canned goods, choose options with glass jars when possible. Glass does not leach chemicals, and it preserves flavor better for soups, sauces, and vegetables. For sweets and baked goods, select products that use natural colorings, such as beetroot, paprika, turmeric, or spirulina. These may cost slightly more but avoid the risks linked to synthetic dyes. Imported sweets should be checked carefully as American versions often contain ingredients no longer used in Europe. Older adults can also reduce exposure by choosing fresher, less processed foods. Fresh vegetables, whole fruits, dried beans, and unseasoned meats require fewer additives and less packaging. Heating food in glass rather than plastic, even when the plastic is labeled microwave safe, is another protective measure. Finally, remember that small habits add up. Replacing just a few high-risk items, your canned soups, your colored sweets, your non-stick baking papers, can significantly reduce long-term exposure. Safer choices do not require perfection, only awareness and consistency. Each informed decision becomes a step toward better protection for you and your family. This investigation has shown that the ingredients and packaging materials we often overlook can have far greater impacts on our health than we realize. The differences between UK and EU safety standards matter especially for older adults who accumulate chemical exposure over a lifetime and may be more vulnerable to long-term effects. Many of these additives, dyes, and packaging chemicals remain invisible to the eye and absent from marketing, leaving consumers with the impression that familiar products are automatically safe. But awareness is a powerful form of protection. By understanding what these substances are, why regulators disagree on them, and where they appear in everyday foods, you can make more confident and informed choices. Protecting your family does not require fear, only knowledge, careful reading, and a willingness to choose safer alternatives when possible. Which ingredient or packaging material surprised you the most in this investigation? Have you ever noticed any of these additives on the products you buy or found differences between similar foods from different countries? Your experiences can help other viewers make better decisions. If you want to stay informed about hidden risks in everyday foods and learn practical ways to protect your household, consider following this series so you never miss future reports. Each video is designed to give you clear evidence-based guidance tailored to seniors and families. Thank you for spending your time with this investigation. Your awareness is the first step towards safer choices for you and your loved ones.